Hi there! If you're watching this, it's because you love Halloween and you also love Great Big Story. We wanted to treat you to a Halloween special. From haunted houses to a very gruesome chef, prepare to be spooked.
Well, I think any cook loves to hear that's delicious, but it means a lot more when the food is actually horrific. It's a dead body, it's a lung, maybe roadkill rats. I'm Janice Poon, and I'm the food stylist you come to if you want a grisly little something for your table. What have I done? Roasted legs, Peking-style whole bodies, edible insects, tiny organs for dead rats, edible snails, space whales, raw, of course. First, I was an art director in an agency, then a caterer, a cookbook author, a graphic novelist, a sculptor, then a miniaturist, couturier, and writing. Did I forget anything? Oh, I love the reading part of the creative process. Lay back on the sofa. I read as much as possible. I just do a quick sketch to communicate to everybody the look I'm going for and narrow the field. The kitchen is really where the sorrow begins. That's where everything that you thought was going to work out great doesn't. And that is where you really start to think, well, now what am I going to do? You know, it's kind of yummy. Nothing like a little raw hamburger to get you going. As a food stylist, I get all kinds of requests from actors who have dietary restrictions. I didn't expect, however, to get one from a vampire queen who wouldn't eat meat. What I used was essentially sweet potato. That doesn't look like meat. Maybe I need something to make it more gummy. I'll put a bunch of glutinous flour in. Well, that's a bit yellow for meat, isn't it? So I'll put in some beets. After a couple minutes of the microwave spinning around, what it needs is a little tiny flecks of fat. I use chopped up rice and just plow that stuff in, oil, and that's really going to make it look visceral. It's not just edible, it's delicious. Well, one little food item that we have in a lot of horror movies is corn syrup. Corn syrup with food coloring in it to make it look like blood. Buckets and buckets and buckets of this stuff get used for TV shows, and you just pour it on and lick it off. I would say the duct tape of food styling is oil, because a little slick of oil is going to make anything look as if it just freshly cooked or it's just juicy and delicious. Well, fake mold, if you want it to be edible, you have to use Dutch processed cocoa, which is a black powder, spirulina powder, icing sugar, and white food coloring. You can dust them on your food, and it'll look just like mold. Furry, but yummy. Sometimes I use toothpaste because it comes in a tube, and you just throw it in your bag, and boop, 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 and that's little blobs of mold. But people don't like to eat a lot of toothpaste, so there you go. When I looked at the first Hannibal script, I thought, wow, these people are crazy. Mads was the most adventurous. He was kind of annoyed with me the first day when I didn't serve up real lung, real brain, and real liver. But then I knew he was going to be an adventurous eater, so it all cut loose from there. Our final scene was to be Bedelia's dining on her own leg. The leg was the old go-to pork. It had a marrow bone at the thigh end and a lamb shank at the ankle end. I felt I had to apologize to Gillian. And I said, Gillian, I'm sorry I made the leg so big. If I had made it the size of your leg, it wouldn't have looked as impressive. She did say, oh, that's beautiful, which is what you really want. She didn't say, oh, my leg looks good. Part of storytelling, of course, is that tension, especially with horror, where so many of the characters are psychically, they're on a knife's edge. You want your food to be on a knife's edge too. You want it to teeter. Is it horrible? Is it delicious? No, it's horrible and delicious.
I think people now are more afraid of death than they've ever been because they're not familiar with it, because it seems like this exotic other. If every single person who's ever lived has died, it can't be that bad, right? I can't imagine how one wouldn't be fascinated by death. My name is Joanna Eppenstein. I'm the creative director and co-founder of the Morbid Anatomy Museum. The name Morbid Anatomy seems to suggest to a lot of people something more like the American Morbidity Museum and American Horror Story. And so people will come in and be like, where are the dead babies? And they're like, no, we don't have dead babies here. There's two parts in the museum. There's the temporary exhibition, which is always borrowed from different private collectors. And there's this room we're in, which is the Morbid Anatomy Library. I think a lot of people who like this project are people who had to choose at a certain point between art and science. I always wanted to be a scientist and I wanted to be an artist. So I'm always interested and drawn to artifacts from time periods before those things were divided up. These ideas that death and beauty, art and science, cute and horrific have to be separate. When I was a kid, I loved animals, and I loved live animals. I loved my cat, but also I loved looking at animals at the Natural History Museum or in a jar in formaldehyde. My college friends would call me morbid because I like to pick up roadkill and preserve the skins. I never stopped doing it, but I was cognizant of the fact that people thought I was a freak. Really, through starting the museum, that's when I really discovered there are so many more people like me than I ever suspected.
Japan's Hashima Island has a foreboding presence. You might recognize it. This completely uninhabited island played home to the villain in James Bond's Skyfall. Once a booming coal mining operation that ended in the 1970s, access is strictly limited, but coming here is like stepping into a time capsule.
In the canals of Xochimilco, 2 hours south of Mexico City, is an island with a tragic and disturbing past. La Isla de las Muñecas, or the Island of the Dolls, is home to more than 2,500 mutilated and partially dismembered dolls.
Las muñecas no son mías, son propiedad de mi tío abuelo Julián, y lo que hago en este lugar es continuar con su historia.
Rogelio Sanchez Santana is the current caretaker of the island, perpetuating his family's stewardship of this mysterious place.
Él recolectaba muñecas que lo protegían, ya que él afirmaba que una joven turista murió frente a su casa. Este espíritu venía a asustar y a penar, y él, para ahuyentarlo, ponía estas muñecas que encontraba en canales y en la basura. Eran para su protección. Las muñecas están colgadas en los árboles, en alambres como tendederos, algunas en el piso, otras más están digamos que en los agüejotes que Julián sembró.
Julián Santana died in 2001, and it is said that he drowned the same way the young tourist did. People believe that the spirits that haunt the island belong to Julián, or the young girl, or even the dolls themselves.
Me han surgido espíritus, ruidos extraños que al vivir yo aquí no lo puedo entender.
Whether you believe in spirits or not, a visit to this island will surely haunt you well after you've left. Winchester Mystery House in San Jose, California, is one of the most haunted places in America.
Winchester Mystery House is an incredibly unique Victorian mansion created by Sarah Winchester, heiress to the Winchester Repeating Arms fortune.
Sarah Winchester had a series of unfortunate things happen to her, including the death of her husband and daughter. She was a spiritualist and visited a medium to try and understand why.
The medium said, well, the gun that won the West, there's a lot of karma there, so head west and build a house to appease these spirits. She started construction in 1884, which didn't stop until the day she died. The house is a 160-room Victorian mansion with no master plan. There's a lot of strange attributes. There's 40 staircases, 40 fireplaces, 4 elevators. We have a number of staircases that lead right to the ceiling, doors that open up into nothing, or it's just a wall.
The house is known for its spirits, who many people believe are the ghosts of people who worked at the house, or even Sarah herself.
A lot of our guests and employees have had very strange things happen to them in this house. Sometimes it's just footsteps, or hearing a voice, a light that flickers, or sometimes it's an actual full physical manifestation. If we haven't solved the mysteries in 93 years, then I don't know if we ever will.
I think, like everybody, I'm interested in stories about ghosts or extraterrestrials. Some people would say, well, don't explain that, I want to believe that. People call me a debunker. They say I'm trying to disprove, I'm raining on their parade. And you know what, I don't apologize at all for trying to find the truth.
And Joe Nickel from the Committee for Skeptical Inquiry.
We've invited renowned skeptic Joe Nickel to meet Cora Lorenzo.
This medieval superstition has got to go. And this is really just silly, except...
I'm Joe Nickel, and I'm a paranormal investigator. I investigate everything from monsters, ghosts, aliens, psychics for a science organization and the magazine Skeptical Inquirer. I knew at the age of 8 that I was a detective, but I eventually became a stage magician.
Oh my goodness.
My models were Harry Houdini and other magicians who used their magic talents to expose trickery. And meanwhile, like everybody, I was curious about haunted houses and flying saucers, and I decided I wanted to do something like that. I've written about 40 books, primarily on mysteries. A lot of cases were miracle claims or some kind of religious claims, spontaneous human combustion, lake monster mysteries, crop circles, UFO sighting, chupacabras, ghosts, Bigfoot. What I'm trying to do is actually investigate, looking for facts and clues. As you begin to put together a case file, you fill the file folder with what data you have, and then trying to find actually corroborative evidence so that I can try to explain what's happening, explain a UFO sighting. My explanations are often quite mundane. People report seeing these long-necked, multi-humped lake monsters. There are many things that can create the illusion of a lake monster, including 2 or 3 or 4 otters swimming in a line, which create the effect of one large creature. Bigfoot is a tall, hairy, bipedal creature. There is a creature that looks very much like Bigfoot, that is a black bear or a brown bear standing, sniffing the air and walking about. People driving by an old mansion in the little community of Burt, New York, sometimes reported seeing a ghostly figure dressed in white. As it turns out, they had had a mannequin dressed in white in the window, and that was responsible for many of those sightings. I think part of me would like for there to be ghosts and for there to be extraterrestrials. But I've done this a long time, and I'm pretty sure that ghosts don't exist. Even the skeptics who like what I do, well, often their first reaction is, that's pretty obvious. Everything is obvious after it's been explained.
People ask me this, for my day job, isn't what you do tedious? As a stop-motion animator, you're very conscious of time and of incrementally moving a three-dimensional object bit by bit by bit. Mad God is a stop-motion film that I've been kind of making for like the last 30 years. There's nothing stopping me from continuing doing it, forever. When I was 5 years old in 1955, I saw King Kong on television. As a stupid kid, I was just enthralled by Hollywood monsters. And that was really the thing that kind of kindled my appetite. Subsequently, over the years, I have worn many hats in the motion picture racket. I've been involved with Star Wars, the RoboCop series, Jurassic Park, Starship Troopers, on and on. One of the things that gives me a lot of pleasure is to make something, but the day job has certain requirements to it. Over the years, those requirements have become a lot more limiting. The Mad God project allowed me to just make this more pure thing that was kind of a form of therapy for me, as an antidote to my day job. It's a combination of live action and stop motion miniature sets in layers like a collage. For lack of a better term, it's a passion project. And things keep getting deeper and darker and odder. There are imaginary cities that are built out of iron ingots. There's like strange jungles that you go through. There's this huge, dystopic, post-industrial nightmare city. And it just goes on and on and on. I mean, practically anything that I can think of. Inherent in it, there's a level of surprise that I think, for me is very childlike kind of a thing. I shoot here at my studio in Berkeley. It's stocked with all kinds of stuff for all kinds of different electronic projects, woodworking projects, lights, cameras. So it's a huge toy box. All of the characters in Mad God are built by me. The process begins with the articulated skeleton, and that's made by ball and socket or hinge joints that allow you to move the characters incrementally, one frame at a time. And then I just wrap lengths of polyurethane foam and build up the general mass. From there, I will take latex skins, adhere them with rubber cement, paint the thing, and then it's ready to shoot. When you're actually shooting a stop-motion scene, you project into the character. And sometimes it can get very complicated. You are always gauging acceleration and deceleration, weight and mass, and then that kind of leads to, but you know what? What would make it better? For me, this whole process is more of a compulsion. I really have no say over it. It's just something that I have to do. I've been doing it so long, I breathe, I live and breathe in this world. It's all I think about.
There's the rulers, the reverb tank, the EBO.
A normal instrument, you're playing it and you're expecting it to have a sound that is pleasing. But with an instrument like this, the goal is to just produce sounds that, in this case, are disturbing.
The apprehension engine, it's an instrument that creates a variety of really creepy and some would say horrifying sounds. My name is Mark Corvin. I'm a film music composer, and lately I've been focusing on horror movie scores. Two of my biggest hits as far as horror films are concerned was from the late 90s, a film called Cube, and most recently, The Witch. I originally commissioned the apprehension engine because I was tired of the same digital samples, which resulted in a lot of sameness of a lot of horror music. So I was looking for something more experimental, more acoustic, that would give me a little bit more of an original sound. That's where I contacted my friend, Tony Duggan Smith.
So Mark called me asking me to create a crazy instrument for horror films. Because I'd never done anything like that before, it made me empty out all my pockets and all my drawers of any knickknacks and bits and bobs I could possibly string together to make it happen for him. And this is what came of it. You're dealing with things that stir primal emotions and feelings. And there actually is a skill set that you have to acquire in order to get the most out of it.
It expresses what really can't be expressed any other way. It's not music in the traditional sense at all. But let me put it this way. The apprehension engine definitely evokes an emotion. So I would call it music.
Faces are the most important subject matter in art. It's a never-ending source of material. When you put on one of my masks, you become somebody different. You start to embody that character and have a lot of fun with it. My name's Landon Meyer, and I make disturbingly realistic masks. I never thought I was gonna make a living doing masks. I was a picture framer, loan officer, pizza delivery driver, and then I got laid off. I've always been interested in doing something that's like really surreal and nightmarish. So it was more or less an experiment that took off. I am the only person out there that's doing hyper-realistic likeness masks. I'm kind of this weird mad scientist down in the basement. I start off getting lots of reference material. The hardest part is doing the sculpture. That can take anywhere from 4 days to a year. But once the sculpt is done and I have a mold, it's about a 1-week process to make a mask. They are ungodly expensive. They range $500 and up, and sometimes even high as $7,500. Over the years, I've made approximately 25 different designs, and I've produced with my own hands over 1,000 masks. What I make, I like to consider wearable art. These are super realistic sculptures you can put over your head and wear. People just seem to have this astonished reaction to the masks. That's what I love about them.
This great big story was made possible by Wells Fargo. Established 1852, re-established 2018. When it comes to horror movies, there's an actor who is so good at his job, his performances stay with you like a nightmare you just can't wake up from. But trust us, he's a really nice guy.
Could you give us a clap?
Let's go. I'm Javier Botet, and I'm an actor.
And Javier's been in a lot of movies. You probably just didn't see him because, well, he looks quite different most of the time.
I feel very comfortable in monster roles. I've been in It, Mama, Conjuring 2, Crimson Peak, Slender Man.
And let's not forget, he's been in The Mummy and Alien too.
I'm very skinny. I'm 2 meters tall and 56 kilograms. It's not a problem of eating because I love to eat. It's a personal condition. It's called Marfan syndrome.
Javier's career started when he met a prosthetic makeup teacher in Madrid. This led to Javier's first monster role in the movie Beneath Still Waters.
That was my first makeup, my first work in a real movie. And well, after that, all the makeup artists start seeing my work and start proposing me in other roles. Last year I've been working in 8 or 9 different shows.
There's gotta be some behind-the-scenes gossip then.
Yeah, well, I was in Crimson Peak. I was out of all the makeup. And I was the last day with Guillermo del Toro. And I say Tom Hiddleston, and I said, okay, see you, it was a pleasure. And he said, who are you? So I say, I was your ex-wife's. Okay, yeah. Sorry, I didn't recognize you.
But don't pigeonhole this guy. He might be a monster most of the time, but he's got dramatic range.
Okay, guys, you ready? Really love what you do because it's going to be hard and long journey. Be prepared. You never know what's gonna happen. Don't be shy. Don't let the fear paralyze you. So relax. You know what I mean? Woo! If I can ask for something, I would love to be a big Sith. I will rule the galaxy.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Thank you.
Once a town of nearly 10,000, Bodie is located just east of the Sierra Nevada mountain range in California. Established in 1859 as a gold mining village, at its height there were nearly 2,000 buildings here. Now, 200 remain as this town lies in a state of arrested decay. Bodie is one of the most well-preserved ghost towns in America. In the northwest region of Cambodia, there's a site like none other, where trees rise from rooftops and roots snake their way through walls. This is Ta Prohm, a 12th century Buddhist temple that's become one with the jungle.
Deep in the Namibian desert is a place time forgot. Once a German colony, miners flocked here after diamonds were discovered in 1908. The town grew quickly. fueled by the enormous wealth hidden beneath the sands. But as the diamonds disappeared and production relocated, the town was left completely abandoned, to be slowly consumed by the ever-shifting desert.
We've tapped into their radios.
We can confirm 2 divisions.
Confirmed. We have an aerial visual. Copy.
Yes, we can hear them moving in.
Only none of what the Germans thought they could see or hear was real. During World War II, a secret division of the US Army, now known as the Ghost Army, conducted over 20 tactical operations, which resulted in saving tens of thousands of lives. The mission? To trick the enemy into thinking that their unit of 1,000 men was actually 2 divisions of 30,000 men. But the Ghost Army wasn't made up of traditional soldiers. The majority were actors, designers, advertisers, and artists who had been recruited from the top art and design schools around the country. And this army of artists used their creativity for an infantry of illusion. Engineers developed inflatable tanks, which the artists would then paint. These tanks could condense down to fit into a portable bag and inflate on demand, much like a bouncy castle. Audio engineers used large speakers to play sound effects of tanks and marching soldiers, which had been pre-recorded at Fort Knox. This marching army could be heard from miles away. Along with fake radio messages sent into the signals of the enemies, they would also send actors dressed as generals and officers into local towns to spread false information and rumours. It wasn't until 1996, when information about the Ghost Army was declassified, that the world finally knew about these masters of misdirection, the unsung heroes of World War II.
A trope of belladonna will kill you. Datura will put you to sleep forever. Aconitum will kill you. Laurel will produce cyanide and kill you. Every plant here in the poison garden is poisonous and has the ability to kill you. My name's Trevor Jones and I'm the head gardener of Alnwick Garden. This plant is giant hogweed. It will get up to around about 8 foot high. It's phototoxic, so will burn your skin and give you blisters for up to 7 years. This garden is set in the wall garden of the old castle in Northumberland, UK. We'd have around about 95 plants, and we're adding to the collection all the time. This plant is Aconitum, or monkshood. Wonderful blue flowers, but the whole of the plant is poisonous. The berries, crushed up and fed to you, will kill you. The leaves themselves will kill you also, as will the root and the stem. We have to obviously maintain the garden, so we have to tend the plants, and when we do that, we have to be very careful of the way we operate. So we have to cover some of our skin when we deal with particularly dangerous plants. This plant is laurel. It produces cyanide, and we all know what that'll do to you. So it was the brainchild of the Duchess of Northumberland. So rather than having a herb garden, she decided to create more interest and have a poison garden. They're very, very common plants. In fact, a lot of them are what we call cottage garden plants, and they're grown in many people's gardens, but people don't know how harmful they actually are. This is a trope of belladonna. 4 berries are enough to kill a child. People are intrigued by poisonous plants and often very worried when they come out because many of them will be growing these plants at home. They don't realise the powerful impact plants can have on us as humans.
Is it something that you find fascinating?
Definitely.
Why?
It's a good way to get rid of your wife. I don't know.
The Loch Ness Monster is one of our most enduring myths. People have sought its secrets for over 1,500 years. But only one man has devoted his entire life to learning the truth. Alone, in a van, by the loch. And no, he's not a wacko, it's just his thing.
My name's Steve Feltham, and for the last 25 years, I've been a full-time hunter of the Loch Ness Monster. I first came to Loch Ness when I was a 7-year-old boy and found this set of caravans with this gang of grown men hunting for monsters in Loch Ness. And I thought, that's amazing. That would be the life for me. I'd love to do that.
And so he did. 25 years ago, he quit his job, sold his house, bought this van, and pursued his passion. He now holds the Guinness record for the longest continuous search at Loch Ness.
In all my time here, I've only seen one possible sighting of something. All you saw was a spray of water off of the back of something. Boff, 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 boff. Like a torpedo shooting through. To this day, that remains a mystery to me as to what that was. That was in the first year of being here, and I thought, right, this job's going to be really easy. That's one sighting. 25 years later, I'm still sat here waiting for that second sighting. Some people think it's giant eels. Some people think there's a rip in time. Others believe there's a spaceship on the bottom of the loch. It's more likely to turn out to be big catfish than a spaceship on the bottom of the loch. The reason I sit here and I try and solve this mystery is because that's what makes my heart sing. People say, is it lifestyle or is it the mystery? It's both. My life contains freedom, adventure, unpredictability, and the chance of one of the world's greatest discoveries should I ever happen to find Nessie. It's a dream come true. If that little 7-year-old boy could see what became of him, he wouldn't believe his luck.
The Redwood Forest is a very special place. It's the darkest forest on Earth. The trees are so tall, they create their own shadows. And in those shadows, there are a lot of secrets. My name is Dave Cutie. I'm a docent here at Henry Cowell Redwood State Park. I consider myself kind of a volunteer naturalist and redwood researcher. Before coming to Henry Cowell, I was an engineer in Silicon Valley, but I just love the redwoods. I've always been an outdoor kind of person. I've been coming here for 40 years. I come so often now, I swear I could almost tell when a single branch fell. These are the coastal redwood, Sequoia sempervirens. It is the tallest tree on Earth by species. Their wood is very, very interesting. It's red in color. It's very complex genetically, and you can have some that are not like all the others. Albino redwoods have been called ghosts of the forest. We have found 13 albinos in this park. And not very many, not when you consider there's 2 million redwood trees out there. I really know albinos. I know where they all are, and I continue to look for more. Albino redwoods have a very, very soft nature. They aren't as structurally sound as a normal redwood. And we keep trying to understand why they form here. When we first started looking at these things, we said, okay, they're genetically different, but it could be contamination. So we have done some testing, found that these guys actually collect more nickel than these guys. Nickel would normally kill chlorophyll, but the albino redwood doesn't have any chlorophyll, so it doesn't hurt it at all. So where's the source of nickel? Well, we're on a railroad. Some researchers think it is, acting like a liver, filtering out the toxic components, protecting the rest of the forest. When I first started here, I started telling everybody where they were. And then I started finding pieces of albino redwood on the ground. People would go and touch and fold and break off pieces, and I realized that I couldn't do that. I could not be open with people because they were going to go in and destroy it. So their location has been kept secret. Redwoods are a treasure of the earth. They really are. And the more you study them, the more you realize how unique they are and how adaptable they are. Part of the fascination of the redwood forest is its diversity. I am continuing to be fascinated by what I see.
It starts with a yes or no question. Does she have a crush on me? Will I pass the test? Will the Mets win the World Series? While they may not have always predicted the truth, Magic 8 Balls are actually inspired by a real-life clairvoyant.
Do you want to hear your fortune?
In the 1940s, Mary Carter was a popular medium, best known for her mysterious fortune-telling invention. It was called the Psycho Slate, essentially a chalkboard with a cover. When the clients would visit, Mary would ask a question to the spirits. The room would fill with the sound of scribbling, and then, just like poof, magic, Mary would reveal answers from another world mysteriously written on the chalkboard. Mary's son, Albert, was inspired by his mother and created his own truth-seeking device. But this time, you didn't need a psychic to tell you your fortune. He put a pair of worded dice inside a tube filled with molasses. Each end was clear so you could read the answers. Sound familiar? Albert hit the streets. He partnered with a couple local businessmen and opened a novelty company where they specialized in the miracle home fortune teller. After he died, Albert's partners took over and redesigned the project numerous times. They ended up with a crystal ball-like shape with a die in the middle, and a billiards company took note. They needed a promotional item, so they replaced the crystal ball with the iconic black 8-ball. The promotion was so successful that they rebranded the Magic 8-Ball, this time marketing it as a fortune-telling toy. Today, kids are still using Magic 8-Balls to ask for their fortunes. And for that, you can thank Mary the Clairvoyant.
Ah, yes.
Goosebumps is one of the best-selling book series of all time. And this man is responsible for each and every terrifying, spine-tingling, horror-filled story.
Hi, I'm R.L. Stine. I write the Goosebumps books.
Huh, maybe he's not so scary.
I actually started as a humor writer.
Well, what do you know? In 1992, Scholastic released the very first Goosebumps book. But way before that, a young Bob Stine was into writing jokes.
I started writing funny stuff when I was 9 years old. All I ever wanted to be was funny. When I came to New York, I had my own humor magazine. And after 10 years, I thought, gee, I've done what I always wanted to do. I guess I'll coast the rest of my life. I had no idea what was in store for me.
And then, things started to get spooky.
I had lunch with the editorial director at Scholastic. She'd had a fight with a YA horror writer. And she said, you could write a good YA horror novel. I said, okay, no problem, you got it. And I went home and wrote this novel, and it was a #1 bestseller. I thought, whoa, wait a minute, forget the funny stuff. And I've been scary ever since.
That book marked the start of R.L. Stine's horror writing career, and he eventually wrote an entire series called Goosebumps. But it wasn't an immediate success.
They went out and they just sat on the shelves. They didn't sell. 2 months goes by, 3 months, nothing. We figured that's it, it didn't work out. And then something happened. It's a mystery. Kids discovered it somehow. Nobody knew me, really. There was no hype, no advertising, no publicity. There was nothing. Just kids telling kids. It's just, one of these amazing, lucky things that happened.
Now, after 25 years, Goosebumps is scaring a whole new generation of kids.
It's a really nice thing to be able to write for different generations. At first, I was shocked when adults started showing up in my book signings. I'd say, what are you doing here? I'd say, we loved you when we were kids. And I realized I'm nostalgia to them. I think you kind of remember that tingle of fear that you had when you were a kid.
But with the success of Goosebumps, does R.L. Stine ever miss the chance to be funny?
There's something weird with my brain because horror always makes me laugh. It's that same visceral reaction. That's what I try to do in my books. People think if you're a horror writer, you're scary all the time, and your whole life is horror. But I did my own late-night comedy show at Upright Citizens Brigade last year.
Are you doing one this year, too?
I'm waiting by the phone. No one's called me. I don't know. I'm waiting. That was it. That might be my comedy career.
Normally there's this awkwardness around disability, but with that costume on there, that changed how people saw my son. They saw him first before they saw his disability. It just helps break down that barrier. Magic Wheelchair is a nonprofit that builds epic costumes for amazing kiddos in wheelchairs. Magic Wheelchair started when my son was 3 years old. Halloween rolled around and he wanted to be a pirate. We're new to the whole disabilities and wheelchair thing. We didn't know anything about spinal muscular atrophy. I saw him sitting in his wheelchair and thought, wow, we could dress him up as a pirate, be a pirate in a wheelchair, and let's build a ship. We have made probably about 40 different costumes. We have teams right now all over the country. We have a team in France and working on a team in Australia. We're just gonna keep onboarding teams because we want to build year-round. It's hard to build for people that are in wheelchairs, but it ultimately starts with the kid. It's whatever they want to be, and then we make it a reality. Halloween was kind of our initial push, but we're seeing like Comic-Con, right? And what's cool about that community of cosplay, that's a very supportive community. The cold reality of childhood diseases are some of them won't be around for next Halloween, so let's find something that we can do while they're here with us. So they have these great memories, and that their families have memories when they're gone. It's almost like a cure for the day, because they don't see the wheelchair, they just see these amazing kids, and it bridges gaps and overcomes that awkwardness that we have in society. I mean, they're the star of the show. Oh, it's awesome to see.
Every night, countless people wake up, unable to move. Their minds and bodies in the throes of a real condition called sleep paralysis. When triggered, the symptoms are usually mild, from tense muscles to labored breathing. But for some, the experience conjures hallucinations that make nightmares come alive. Here are some of their stories.
Before I learned to cope with it, I've seen quite a few awful things. Horror films don't really do anything for me anymore because what I've seen is more terrifying. The earliest I can remember is seeing a figure that looked like my mother sitting on my bed. Her face is then morphing into some kind of demon. Another time, a little girl was in the corner just staring at me. Then without notice, she shrieks and runs up and grabs me by the neck. You try to call for help, but your voice, it doesn't work, and your body won't respond. You just feel helpless.
On one particular night, I felt like someone was looking at me from the foot of my bed. I knew that nothing was there, but I was afraid to open my eyes. When I did, I saw a woman's head looking straight back at me. She didn't have a body or even a neck, just her head. I still remember the smirk she had on her face. I closed my eyes immediately and I was unable to move. When I felt it was safe, I opened my eyes again. She was still there, and she began to laugh at me. I closed my eyes again, hoping she would disappear. Then I heard this scoff, and she was gone.
So I remember waking up and feeling a presence in the room, and I see this woman in a black dress looming above the floor, and she kept coming closer and closer to me. I could feel my throat closing and I couldn't breathe. As soon as she made it towards me, she floated right in front of my face and started screaming. I bolted out of my bed and I tried to wake up my parents. Little did I know I was still dreaming, and I ended up back in my bed in another sleep paralysis experience. It's something that's so wild and surreal that there's no logic to it.
So if you wake up one day, paralyzed by horrific visions, remember to stay calm and understand that your nightmares are only as real as you make them.
In Guanajuato, Mexico, there is a museum filled entirely with mummies.
Mi nombre es Paloma Robles Lacayo y soy la directora del Museo de las Momias de Guanajuato. El Museo de las Momias de Guanajuato es un recinto sagrado que exhibe una colección de momias naturales.
With 117 bodies in total, the museum has the largest collection of natural mummies in the world. The mummies are the well-preserved remains of people who died during a cholera outbreak in Mexico in the 1800s. The museum is a haunting and eerie experience for visitors, an opportunity to stare death in the face.
Vienen a buscar esa experiencia íntima, ese encuentro místico con la muerte, que propicia la reflexión en torno a la intensidad de su propia vida y el sentido de la misma. Es importante que las personas no le tengan miedo a la muerte y al contrario, lo vean como un fenómeno natural, como una transición inevitable de su existencia, porque finalmente se van a encontrar con ella.
Thanks so much for watching, guys. We hope you had a really spooky time watching our Halloween livestream special. Make sure to check out some of our other videos down below. And from everyone here at GBS, we hope you have a really scary Halloween. Bye.